My name's Taylor Rowan, and this is Confident Risks, a podcast based on confidence in the workplace, confidence in your product, confidence in what you know. We're going to talk about taking on risks. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on myself, but I couldn't be more excited to get started. So jumping right in, guys, I want to talk to you guys first about confidence. And I'm going to ask the question right off the bat, what is confidence? If you had to take that perfect example of confidence right now and envision that person, who or what are you envisioning? And for a lot of you, the person that you're envisioning is, maybe that's a person in the meeting. The boss asks a question and you got old Henry in the corner who raises his hand really quick and is answering a question right off the bat, right? Maybe you're on a sports team and you're doing one-on-one drills and you have a receiver versus a DB and that DB is just chirping. We look at that and say, man, that person is confident. That is the definition of confidence. But in reality, that is probably the least confident person out there. A lot of times that person who's chirpy or talking, yes, they're extremely outgoing, but confidence is something that really they lack, and they're trying to make up for it in the sense of being chirpy. Now, that's not to say that a chirpy, outgoing person can't also be confident. But today I really want to dive into, in the business world, what does confidence look like? And I love, you guys will learn watching this episode and watching these shows, that I love parallels. I love taking a story and I love comparing it to something else. If I can do that, a lot of the times that parallel helps me explain something a little bit better. I go back to when I was playing football. I was a kicker through high school and college. And for me, if I was going to replicate something, which was kicking in a game, maybe in front of 70,000 people, you had to not just go kick every day by yourself, but you had to replicate kicking in front of maybe your teammates or sprinting to the end of the field and back, get your heart rate up, really to replicate that scenario so that you can be better down the road. I want to do the same thing when it comes to confidence. I want to get a scenario that a lot of you can relate to. And that scenario is purchasing, okay? Everybody does it. If you were to take a purchaser, there's some people who jump online, see something, they purchase it, a little blue package with blue tape shows up at your door. The Amazon package, maybe there's arguments when that happens. That doesn't happen in my house. But the purchase that I want to talk about is the big purchase that you have to make. Maybe it's a vehicle, maybe if it's a house, maybe it's a new furniture for your house, whatever. Let's take that scenario for a minute. If you have to make a big purchase, we're going to say it's a 2015 Honda Accord that you have to buy. You're looking for a used car. You want something that's going to work well for your family, so you start doing the research. Okay, I want the 2015 Honda Accord. Here's the motor I want. Here's the interior that I'm looking for. Here's the mileage that I want. And you're scrolling. You know the price point. Let's just say it's $5,000. You're going through, you're doing Google searches. You're finding out more about this car. You're looking on forums. You're maybe watching YouTube videos. You're doing everything you can to find out as much as you can about that product, okay? In those searches, maybe it's day 5, you're scrolling through and you found the car that meets the price point that you were hoping to find one at. It checks all the boxes. The mileage is there, the one owner, the paint looks like it's in good shape. You send the message to the seller and you say, hey, is this still available? Message guy writes back, seller writes back right away, yep, still available. Heart starts racing. You set up the meeting, you go to his house, or you meet in a neutral location, you look at the cards, everything that you thought it would be. You take it to the mechanic says it shows up right. At that very point, the person that you're with, or maybe you're asking this question to yourself, is they'll look over to you and say, is this the right purchase? That very second is the confidence that I'm talking about in this episode moving forward. That confidence that you're able to look back at that person and say, I've done the research, this is 100% the right purchase, and you do the deal, and you make the deal. That is confidence. Confidence is not the chirper, it's not the person that's talking. A majority of the time, the confident person in the business industry is the quietest person in the room. It's the person that knows the answer, they've done the research, they know what the right answer is, and a lot of times they're waiting for the other people to maybe say something before they speak up, okay? Hopefully that resonates with a lot of you listening today. To be confident, you do not have to be the loudest person in the room. For me, I know as I'm hiring employees on, we go through a 30-day trial period with these employees, and the first 30 days is a telltale sign. I can have somebody that comes in, absolutely kills their interview, say all the right things, do all the right things. They're here maybe the first week, they're doing the right things, they're talking to the right people. Week 2 comes around, maybe they hit a little hiccup here or there. How do they react to that hiccup? They've learned the process the first week, they've been in it the second week. How do they move forward in week 3 and 4? That is a telltale sign. Your voice and your talking can only get you so far before true action meets the concrete. That's the time when I can tell if an employee is going to be around for the long haul or not. Is that person confident? Can I go to that person with the mistake that they made, which hopefully they do make one in those first 30 days, and say, what happened? And they look at me and say, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I just messed up. I flat out messed up in this area. Here's what I learned from it. Here's how I'm moving forward. Instead of the person who has the quick, witty answer, says exactly what I want to hear, they go back out into the shop and they're going to make the same exact mistake 2 or 3 more times. Okay. Maybe they have a great attitude, but I don't want that person. I want the confident person who knows exactly what they're doing. Maybe it takes a little bit longer for them to do it, but they do it right every single time. So now that I've gone over the definition of confidence that I'm speaking about, I want to leave you with this. Be confident daily and use words when you have to. Say it one more time. Be confident daily and use words when you have to. Remember, confidence does not come from chirping. Confidence comes from knowing your product, just like purchasing the vehicle. Knowing your product and knowing when it comes time to pull the trigger, you know it's the right decision. That's the confidence that we're looking for. That's the confidence that this whole podcast is based on, is making confident risks, making educated, confident risks. Every single thing that you do in life is going to have some sort of risk factor in it, whether it's driving your kids to soccer practice, whether it's starting a business, whether it's whatever, you fill in the blank. There is some sort of risk involved into it. The question is, how confidently, how well prepared, how willing are you to put money on yourself that you're making the right choice? That's confidence. With that being said, let's jump now into business. Now that we've gone over the true business definition of confidence and what that really means, I want to jump back and go through how I got started in business and then where we sit today. So back in 2017, I had finished up, we talked about earlier, my football career, and I had, at that point, was ready to jump into the business industry. And I was out in Spokane, Washington. I was playing for the Spokane Shock, the arena football team, met my wife out here. So I wanted to start jumping into the business front. And luckily enough, my father-in-law had a business out here. So I was able to start there and really start learning what business was, the common terminology, which seems self-explanatory, but at the same time, when you have never been in that, there's a lot to learn. So for the first year or two of doing that, there was a lot of learning to do for myself. And the biggest part of that, the biggest learning curve that I had was I had gone from a team, and a lot of you guys might be able to relate to this, whether it's through high school or college or thereafter, but you're on a team, you have a common goal with that team. And you can tell when you're on a successful team or a non-successful team pretty early on. What are the attitudes like on that team that are around you? Are they guys that no matter what happens, the ebbs and the flows, the ups and the downs, we're going to keep moving forward? Or do you have a lot of quitters on your team, right? The thing that I noticed most when going into the everyday business industry was you did not have the drive that you had on a team. The common goal and the common prize, if you will, wasn't the same for everybody. You had some people who were just there because they wanted to get the paycheck. They were doing just enough, which isn't a problem in some cases. Maybe your job, you just want to go there, you want to put in just that effort, and that's fine. That's to each their own. But then you had the people that were just the overly confident people who were just talking to talk. They had no sense behind what they were saying, literally just loved hearing themselves talk, right? And then you had the people who would sit back and do the real work. So you really had these three groups. And for me, that was the toughest part, because I'd come from, if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you were gone right away. And if you weren't performing at the level you weren't supposed to be performing at, especially in the Arena League and thereafter, you just weren't there the next week. There were other people depending on your job. So for me, that was the biggest thing to learn. But anyway, I went through, I was a project manager, and I remember we were working at some mechatronics company, and I can remember during that whole process, we started doing a renovation at the building, and somebody came to me and said, Taylor, can you look into getting a shipping container for us here at the facility? And okay, a shipping container for, we need it for extra storage. Okay, great. So I started doing the research. Well, it kicked back old memories I had, because I was in college at Western Illinois. I got a construction management degree. And during that time, we had to do a project on renewable resources or alternative resources to building besides your traditional resources. So mine was on shipping containers. I was on a flight to a game, and I remember reading an article on a guy that built a container house. And for me, if anyone knows me, they knew that during that time from college to when I was playing, shipping containers was this weird little obsession that I had. It's something that I'd always wanted to build a container house. So during that time, I remember thinking to myself, man, that's kind of kicking back some old memories. So I researched it, figured out how to get the container, got it to our facility, got it for the absolute best price, got it delivered, and we started renting that container. Well, during that time, I had known that I wanted to do something on my own one day, and I didn't know what it was. So I just started going down the avenue. Okay, if I did want to build a container house one day, what would it take? Where can I get the absolute cheapest container? How can I get it back to Spokane? It was roughly 300 miles to Seattle and back. So I started doing that research, and the numbers were just adding up. Again, going back to that purchase, like I'm doing the research, I see the numbers, I know what the prices should be, I know what they're selling for here. Maybe there's something here. So I was working my job at the time, and this is the next point I'm going to make to everybody. If you're looking to do something on your own, okay, there is obviously a risk involved with it, okay? Confidence is a big part of that. You have to have the confidence to do it. But I'll also say this. Doing something in parallel to what you're currently doing is an extremely smart decision. It does two things. One, are you willing to do what you currently have to do and do something that you're wanting to do future-wise on the side? Okay? And the excuse I hear all the time is I just don't have enough time. Okay, I don't have enough time. I got to take my kids. I got to do this. You have time right now to listen to this podcast, right? Oh, well, I'm doing that while I'm driving. Okay, great. Well, maybe this is that first step in doing that. Fantastic. So you are doing something in parallel currently, right? So for me, it was starting to look into the container prices, into getting them back here. The confidence was building. So finally, I just said, you know what? I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to try selling a container in the Spokane area to see what happens just to get me in the industry. I was looking for a rental container. Maybe there's people who want to buy them. So I took a picture of an old shipping container, posted it on Craigslist because that's all we had at the time. Marketplace wasn't quite there yet. And posted up on Craigslist, and I was absolutely flooded with phone calls. People were calling me left. I couldn't believe it. I was at my normal job, and I was answering more phone calls to this container ad that I put out there than I was doing my own job. So we had a Friday off. I decided, you know what, I'm going to take my father-in-law's truck. He's got a 3/4 ton. I can go rent a trailer. I'm going to go pick up this 20-foot container at the coast. I'm going to bring it back to Spokane, and I'm going to sell it. So before I had even left for the coast, we had a Friday off. I had the container sold to a customer here, and I had 3 more containers already lined up to be sold, meaning that I had 3 trips that I was going to Seattle already to buy containers and bring them back. So I took that Friday off, drove to the coast, 100 miles in, flat tire. Trailer tire blew, which I was warned from the rental company might happen. Anyway, changed the tire, barely got to the coast on time, got to pick up the container, and it was absolutely dog trash. The container was in terrible shape. And for me, I'm looking at this, man, this is the start of my company. Got a flat tire on the way there. I get there, the container's in terrible shape. Okay, I'll start driving back. Drove back. Getting about halfway back, my wife was helping with the financials on this time, and she was running the card of the person who purchased the container. A lot of you are asking, well, why didn't you get that before you left? Well, at the time, I really wasn't thinking about that. Halfway back, card declines. So now I've got this investment into this container, into this rental, and when you're working typical 9 to 5, you don't have the funds a lot of the time, especially early on, to support this kind of purchase. So now I'm stressing out. We get about an hour or two further into the drive, and I remember my wife calling and say, hey, the payment went through, you're good to go. And as I'm pulling up to this guy's driveway, I start thinking to myself, how am I going to get this container off the truck? Luckily, I get there. The guys are, really cool, high spirits. He was just happy to have the container. So I ended up tying the container to a tree and driving out from underneath it, which ended up working. But at the time, I thought, okay, my margins are so good, I'm going to give this guy a little bit of a discount for the worries. My whole thing was I just wanted to get the first one under my belt just so I could get the process started, and somebody was funding me to do that. So like I'd said, I had sold 2 or 3 more, and so I was working a full-time job at the time, so I decided to bring on my first employee. Never done this before. So at the very beginning of this, it was me paying cash to a guy to drive over to the coast for me while I was at work, pick up a container. He had a CDL and drive the container back for me. Yes, I know now that was not the most legal thing to do, but it's what I had to do at the beginning. Brought the container back. The container was sitting there when I got off work. I ended up going and delivering it to the same way to the customer again, took some money off of it for the trouble that they had to go through of watching me pull this thing off the trailer. But that's how I started the business. And it was not flawless at the beginning at all. I had to go through the ups and the downs, and that's just the first one. I mean, the second one, I got into a situation where I was so far out into the woods, and my brother was with me, that we were out there for 4 or 5 hours, no cell phone coverage. Our wives had actually already called the police saying that we had been missing. There were all sorts of issues starting the business off. But that is the key point when it comes to starting a business, is you look at starting a business because maybe you want more time freed up. Maybe you want to have people doing the work for you. The reality is this: if you do not have the means to problem solve, starting a business is not for you. If you do not want to hear the negatives, starting a business is not for you. If you are the person who can have a solution for a problem, business is for you. And what does that come with? It comes with confidence. It comes with knowing your product. Sometimes we go and we talk to a car dealer, or we talk to a fabricator, or we talk to somebody who's really proficient at what they do, and we think, man, how are they so good at what they do? Well, each one of you have something that you love doing, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting, whether it's sports, whether it's a podcast, whatever it is, you all have something that you love doing. You've done the research on it. And if you had to take that one thing and talk to somebody about it, you could do it. The same thing goes for when you start a business. And maybe one of those things is that thing that you need to start. Maybe it is fishing. Maybe it is a podcast. Maybe it is something in fabrication or manufacturing. Who knows what that it factor is? But the thing is, you just have to have knowledge on the topic. The more and more research you do on the topic, the more and more knowledgeable you are. Okay. After you have that knowledge, take on the steps of doing that something in parallel with something else. If you do that, you're almost completely eliminating the risk factor, and all it is confidence moving into that. The risk factor is when you decide to fully drop your other job, but that risk is so minimal if the confidence and the research that you have done and put into that supersedes the risk factor. So I've got to the point where we were selling containers, right? We've got to that point. We're selling containers now. We did that all the way up through 2017, 2018. My wife and I are doing it. We're slinging boxes. I'm working from the house. I've got 2 or 3 drivers out picking boxes up, and now they're delivering. I got the right trailer now so that we can actually tilt these up in the air, deliver them to customers, right? Business is going good. Then COVID comes into the factor, and shipping container prices skyrocket through the roof. They are absolutely, they're 4 to 5 times more expensive. Other people at this point now have seen what I'm doing. They're coming into the market. They're trying to, flood the Spokane market with containers. If you're not willing in the business industry to adapt, kind of goes right hand in hand with, problems come up. How can I problem solve? If you're not willing to adapt, you will die. Point blank, period. And I mean die on a business standpoint. Your business will die if you can't adapt. Point blank, period. And I found that out on 2 or 3 different occasions. And luckily, I was always adapting. And so our business never died. But at the same time, if we weren't moving forward and adapting, then there were a lot of times where we would have been dead in the water. And the biggest point on that was when COVID came in, I knew already that I had wanted to start doing fabrication on containers. So I taught myself, and I was starting to teach myself how to 3D model because I wanted to be able to show a customer, not just draw it on a piece of paper. Here's where we're going to put a window in a container and a door and pop-up windows and this, that, and the other. I wanted to actually be able to physically show what I was going to do for that customer. So in parallel with my business, I always had something going in parallel. In parallel with my business, I was teaching myself how to 3D model. I went on SketchUp. I was modeling stuff out. I would do a container. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, here, this works. Okay, this is how so-and-so did it. And I would just keep modeling it. So in 2020, when things were at kind of the peak of tough for container sales, a fire department had come to me and said, hey, can you build a training facility for us? And I had no means, and I never even had thought about this. I had never been a firefighter, never thought about being in the fire industry. But when I looked at what they were wanting, it was a very simplified version, is how I saw it at least, of a house. It was a metal structure with some metal frames in it and a place to do live burns in that would protect the container. So I took the project on. I told him 100%. I quoted the project out for him, jumped on Excel, ran the numbers on it. Here's what the price point's going to be. Did a basic model for him, sent it to him. They loved it. So I got that job before I even had a full-time fabricator on staff because I knew that I could get a fabricator. So I hired a very experienced fabricator, brought him on, and the experience that fabricator had made up for the lack of knowledge that I had in manufacturing and design work. So they were able to kind of go hand in hand. I showed him, hey, here's my idea. Here's what I want to do. Here he makes it happen. We talk to the engineer. We make this whole thing happen as a triangle. First build. My goal was to have my first build funded where I wasn't just taking this out of pocket. So we did the first build. And there were definitely hiccups. There were things that we didn't think about. But at the end of the day, we made it worthwhile for the customer that was receiving the product, which then they ended up being very happy with. So then we had all these apartments coming to us saying, hey, we want what you have, but we need a smaller version of that. So due to what I had been doing in SketchUp, I was able to take that, morph it down into this really small, compact training device that any fire department could have, whether they're in metropolitan areas, whether they were downtown, whether they're out in the suburb, wherever they were, they could utilize this training device that was on wheels, that was mobile, and it gives them basically an at-home gym at their fire department. I tell you all that to say this. I had zero experience in any of the things that I went into, okay? Here's what it took. It took listening. It took me sitting down. I can tell you this. I have become a lot quieter over the past probably 6 or 7 years since I started the business. I used to be very just here, this and that, and just loved hearing myself talk. But after I started diving into and really understanding the fact that if I was going to do something on my own, it wasn't going to be about the talking. It wasn't going to be about the factor. It was about executing. And it was making sure that when my customer received something, it was exactly what I said it was going to be. That's what I focused on mainly, is making sure that I had a customer that was happy at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, and this is what millennials probably, I don't know, people my age can see, is that our parents, the products that our parents had were quality products. Quality is starting to go down major. For me, it was having a product that I could stand behind, that when a fire department got this, they knew that the product was going to be something that was going to be reliable, and that's what our name portrays. So our product is exactly what we tell the fire department it's going to be. Wrapping all of this together now, going back to confidence. Be confident daily. Use words when you have to. That goes for whether you're wanting to start a business, whether you're looking to get into business, whether you're wanting to be better at what you're currently doing, whether you're on a team, you're looking to build that team. Be confident daily and use words when you have to. The most confident person in the room is not the loudest person in the room. The most confident person in the room is the one who knows what they're talking about. That's the person that you listen to. If you're looking to start a business, there will be ebbs, there will be flows, there will be ups, there will be downs. You have to know that right off the bat. It will not be an easy process. There are going to be major speed bumps. Anybody who started a business or anybody that's a business owner, talk to them. Talk to them about the startup. Every single one of them will most likely smile like I am and say, it was not easy whatsoever. That's the first breaking point. Actually, probably the second breaking point. The first breaking point is jumping in. Okay, that's the hardest one. Second one is, can you survive the breaking point? That probably takes out 80% of people right away. Are you the person who can find a solution, or are you the person that says, you know what, this maybe just isn't for me, and moves on? There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Third point that we talked about was constantly adapting. Never be complacent. If you have a job, you're doing something now, whether you're working a job, whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever, you have to always be working in parallel, constantly adapting. If you don't adapt, you're dead in the water. Thanks again for joining us on our very first episode of Confident Risk. I really hope you like what you heard. I hope you're able to take something from it and apply it to your everyday life. We will be doing weekly episodes, so if you like what you heard, hit the like, hit the subscribe, follow us on social media, and until next time, stay sharp and stay resilient.